Story 1. The Mirror Room. I never wanted to go to Prague. It was Anna who insisted, enchanted by the idea of Gothic architecture and cobblestone streets. I preferred somewhere tropical, predictable sunshine and hotel chains with familiar logos. But marriage is compromise, so Prague it was for our honeymoon. The apartment we rented was in an old building near the Jewish quarter. The listing boasted historic charm with modern amenities, which I discovered meant ancient plumbing and spotty Wi-Fi, but Anna loved it immediately, especially the antique full-length mirror that dominated our bedroom. "It's beautiful," she said, running her fingers along the ornate wooden frame, probably hundreds of years old. "It hasn't been cleaned in just as long," I muttered, noticing the cloudy spots. "Don't you feel it watching us?" she asked, studying her reflection. "Let's not personify the creepy mirror," I said, continuing to unpack. On our first night, I woke to Anna standing in front of the mirror. The digital clock read 3:17 a.m. "Babe," I called out, "what are you doing?" She didn't respond. She just stood there, hand pressed against the glass. "Anna?" I got out of bed and approached her. When I touched her shoulder, she jerked as if shocked. "What?" She blinked rapidly. I needed to use the bathroom." "The bathroom's the other way," I said, pointing. She looked confused. "Oh, right." She shuffled past me without another word. The next day we explored Prague Castle. Anna seemed distracted, constantly checking her phone. "Everything okay?" I asked as we walked across Charles Bridge. "Just tired," she said. "Jet lag." That night, she was at the mirror again, this time at 3:33 a.m. I found her sitting cross-legged in front of it. Something about her expression was off, like she was wearing a mask of herself. "Did you know," she said in a flat voice, "that twins were once believed to share a single soul? That's why mirrors were dangerous for them. They could get confused about which side was real." "Come back to bed," I said. "You're exhausted." "I'm not tired at all," she replied. "In fact, I've never felt more awake." The next morning, Anna suggested we extend our stay. "I'm connecting with this city," she said over breakfast. "Don't you feel it?" I didn't. What I felt was a growing unease. Anna had always been the more spiritual one between us, but this was different. She was different, more intense, less patient with me. She began speaking Czech phrases she couldn't possibly know. While Anna napped, I examined the mirror closely. The frame was carved with what looked like stylized eyes and Czech words. I took photos and researched at a nearby cafe. According to legend, a nobleman had the mirror made after his wife gave birth to identical twin girls. One died shortly after birth, and the grieving mother became convinced her surviving daughter contained both their souls. A restoration had uncovered a hidden compartment in the frame containing human hair and baby teeth. When I returned, Anna was reading her folklore book. "Did you know some cultures believe mirrors don't just reflect us, they create our doubles? And every time we look into a mirror, our double looks back, wishing they could trade places." "Anna, I think we should move to a hotel," I said. "This place is affecting you." She laughed. "Don't be silly. I've never felt better." That night, I pretended to sleep while keeping watch. At exactly 3:33 a.m., Anna went to the mirror, pressing both hands against it. "I see you," she whispered. "I'm coming." I approached her slowly. "Anna, you're sleepwalking again." When she turned, her face was blank. "Anna is sleeping," she said in a voice that didn't sound quite like hers. "I'm just borrowing for a while. Do you know what it's like to watch life from behind glass? Your wife is making room for me, just for a little while." I grabbed her shoulders. "Anna, wake up!" Her eyes suddenly widened, confusion replacing the blank stare. "What? What's happening?" "You were sleepwalking," I said, relieved. "Talking crazy." In the morning, I insisted we check out early. As we packed, she kept returning to the mirror, touching it longingly. "Maybe we could buy it," she suggested. "Ship it home." "Absolutely not," I said. She gave me a cold, calculating look. You don't understand. She needs me. Who needs you? I asked. My sister, Anna said. Then she blinked rapidly. I don't know why I said that. I don't have a sister. In our new hotel room, with its blessed lack of antique mirrors, she slept soundly. The next morning, she seemed more like herself. I had these vivid dreams every night, she said, about a girl who looked just like me. She said we were twins, but I was the lucky one because I got to live. Just dreams, I assured her. We enjoyed the rest of our honeymoon without incident. By the time we flew home, the strange episode felt distant, almost laughable. 3 months later, Anna announced she was pregnant. At our first ultrasound, the technician got quiet. Is something wrong? I asked. No, she said carefully, but I'm detecting 2 heartbeats. You're having twins. Anna's face lit up with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Isn't that wonderful? She said. Twins run in my family, you know. As the technician left to get the doctor, Anna leaned close to me, her voice a whisper. She'll need a mirror of her own. Story 2. The Island. I knew Indonesia would be hot, but not this hot. Sweat trickled down my spine as our small boat cut through the water toward the private island resort. Beside me, Cassie was radiant despite the heat, her newly placed wedding ring glinting in the sunlight. Can you believe we got this place for half price? She squeezed my arm excitedly. An entire villa to ourselves for 2 weeks. The deal had been almost too good to pass up a last-minute cancellation at an exclusive resort on a tiny private island near Bali. Despite the aggressive discount, it had still stretched our budget to the breaking point. Just odd that they had a cancellation during peak season, I said, watching the island grow larger on the horizon. Their loss, our gain, Cassie replied. The boat docked at a small wooden pier. A tall Indonesian man in resort attire greeted us with practiced warmth. Welcome to Pulau Mimpi, he said, helping Cassie from the boat. I am Wayan, your island host. The rest of the staff come by boat each morning and leave before sunset. At night, you will have the island to yourselves. That sounds incredibly romantic, Cassie said. Wayan smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Yes, very private. Our villa was a stunning and open-concept design with floor-to-ceiling windows facing the ocean, a private infinity pool, and minimalist luxury furnishings. As Wayan showed us around, I noticed small signs of hasty preparation, fresh paint over a water stain, a partially repaired crack in one window. The previous guests, I started, the ones who canceled, did they say why? Wayan's smile tightened. I do not know the details. Management handles bookings from the main office in Bali. He pointed to a radio on the kitchen counter. For emergencies only. The boat can return in 30 minutes if needed. That first day was everything a honeymoon should be. We swam, drank cocktails, made love on the deck as the sun set. Dinner was served by a staff member who discreetly disappeared afterwards. This is perfect, Cassie sighed as we lay in bed later. I never want to leave. A noise woke me sometime later, a soft scratching at the window. The digital clock read 2:17 a.m. I padded across the floor to investigate. Moonlight illuminated the deck, empty except for our towels. Below, waves lapped at the beach. I was about to return to bed when I noticed movement at the tree line, a shadow darker than the rest, approximately human-sized, standing perfectly still. I blinked, and it was gone. The next morning, we explored the island with Wayan as our guide. Despite being small, perhaps half a mile across, it was densely forested in the center. The other side has a small cove, Wayan explained. Very beautiful to sunset, but we recommend staying on this side after dark. The path can be dangerous without proper lighting. Is there anyone else on the island? I asked. Other guests? Just you, Wayan replied. During high season, we sometimes book the other villa, but it is currently under renovation. Other villa? Cassie asked. I thought this was the only one. Wayan gestured vaguely toward the center of the island. On the other side. Very old now, not used for many years. That afternoon, while Cassie napped, I decided to explore. Following a narrow path through the trees, I emerged on the opposite shore. About 50 yards down the coastline stood the other villa, a weathered structure in colonial style, with a wide veranda and shuttered windows. Most were boarded up, but one set of French doors stood partially open. The interior was dim, furniture draped with dust covers. The air smelled of mildew and something else, a sweet rotting odor. On a side table lay a leather-bound guest book, its pages yellowed with age. The most recent entry was dated 6 months earlier. 3 days was enough. The noises at night are unbearable. Something is wrong with this place. Do not stay after dark. The handwriting deteriorated into a scrawl at the end. Flipping back, I found similar warnings dating back years. A floorboard creaked behind me. I spun around, but the room was empty. Another creak from upstairs, the unmistakable sound of footsteps. "Hello?" I called out. "Wyan?" No response, just another deliberate footstep. Then came the sound of something heavy being dragged across the floor above. I turned and ran, not slowing until I reached our villa. Cassie was awake when I returned. "Where'd you go?" she asked. "Just exploring," I said, not wanting to frighten her. That night, I woke again to sounds this time, something moving on our deck. The clock read 2:17 a.m., exactly the same time as the previous night. I slipped out of bed and approached the window. A figure stood at the railing, facing the ocean. In the moonlight, I could make out a woman in a pale dress, her dark hair moving slightly in the breeze. "Hello?" I called softly. The figure didn't respond. She raised one arm and pointed toward the center of the island, toward the old villa. I blinked, and she was gone. When I returned to bed, Cassie was sitting up. "Who were you talking to?" she asked groggily. "No one," I said. "Just a bad dream." When morning came, I cornered Wyan. "I want to know about the old villa," I said, "and why no one stays there anymore." Wyan's professional demeanor slipped slightly. "Sir, that building is not part of the resort property." "I found a guest book," I pressed. "People wrote warnings about staying after dark." Wyan sighed. "Local stories only. The old villa belonged to a Dutch trader long ago. He brought his new wife here, but she was unhappy, isolated. They say she took her own life. Some locals believe her spirit remains." "A ghost story," I said flatly. "Yes. But after several guests reported disturbances, management decided to build the new villa on this side of the island." "What kind of disturbances?" "Noises. Items moved. Some guests claimed to see a woman walking at night." Later, I casually asked one of the younger servers about the old villa. "Bad place," he said simply. "The Dutch lady, she calls to people, makes them follow." "Follow where?" I asked. He made a diving motion with his hand. "To the water, always at the same time. Always when the moon is highest." That night, I set an alarm for 2:10 a.m. Cassie didn't stir when it went off. I positioned myself by the window. At exactly 2:17 a.m., she appeared again, the woman in white, standing at our railing. I stepped onto the deck. "Who are you?" I asked quietly. She turned, her face beautiful, but wrong somehow, the eyes too dark, the skin too pale. She raised her arm again, pointing toward the old villa, then beckoned for me to follow. "What do you want?" I asked. Her mouth opened, but instead of words, I heard the sound of rushing water. She beckoned more urgently. I took one step toward her, then another. "Babe?" Cassie's voice broke the spell. "What are you doing?" When I looked back, the woman was gone. "There was someone here," I said. "A woman." "There's no one here," Cassie said, scanning the empty beach. "You were sleepwalking." "I wasn't," I insisted. "Ask Wyan about the Dutch trader's wife." Cassie's expression changed from concern to irritation. "We're on our honeymoon. Can we please just enjoy it?" The next day, Cassie suggested a sunset picnic on the beach. As dusk fell, we sat on a blanket sharing wine. "I'm sorry about last night," I said. "I think the heat and jet lag got to me." Cassie smiled. It's okay. This place is pretty isolated. It can play tricks on your mind. That night, I slept deeply, not waking until morning. Cassie's side of the bed was empty. In the kitchen, I found a note. Gone for an early swim. Back soon. I made coffee and took it to the deck, expecting to see her in our infinity pool or on the beach. Both were empty. I followed footprints in the sand that led toward the center of the island, toward the path to the old villa. When I emerged on the rocky beach on the other side, I froze. Cassie was standing waist-deep in the water, facing the horizon. Next to her, almost transparent in the morning light, was the figure of the woman in white. "Cassie!" I screamed, sprinting toward the water. She didn't respond, just took another step deeper, the water now at her chest. The spectral woman beside her was smiling, one pale hand on Cassie's shoulder. I splashed into the water, lunging for Cassie as she took another step. My fingers caught the fabric of her nightgown, pulling her backward as she started to submerge. For a terrible moment, I felt resistance, not just the water, but as if something was pulling her in the opposite direction. Then, she was in my arms, sputtering and confused. "What? Where am I?" she gasped. "You were sleepwalking," I said, half carrying her back to shore. "I had the strangest dream," she said, shivering. "A woman was showing me her collection of seashells under the water. She said they were wedding gifts." We left that day, forfeiting the remainder of our stay. Wyan didn't seem surprised when I radioed for the boat. As we loaded our luggage, I noticed a fresh listing on the resort's booking tablet. Exclusive villa, last-minute availability, 50% discount. "Another honeymoon couple arrives tomorrow," Wyan said. Very lucky to find such a private place on short notice. As our boat pulled away, I looked back at the island growing smaller in the distance. From this vantage point, it was beautiful. Perfect a paradise anyone would dream of for their honeymoon. I hadn't told Cassie what I'd seen the spectral woman standing beside her in the water, wearing not the white dress of previous appearances, but a wedding gown, identical to the one Cassie had worn just days earlier. "Some honeymoon, huh?" I said, attempting lightness I didn't feel. Cassie leaned against me. "We can go anywhere," she said, "as long as we're together." I held her tighter as the island disappeared from view, wondering about the next couple, already en route to their discounted paradise, wondering if the woman in white was waiting for her next bride. Story 3. The Substitution. I never should have taken Marissa to my hometown for our honeymoon. She'd been so excited about the idea, wanting to see where I grew up and meet my childhood friends, that I'd reluctantly agreed. After 10 years away, it seemed safe enough. People forget, move on, die. The last possibility weighed heavily on my mind as we drove past the Welcome to Oak Ridge sign. Population 2,187, down from 2,188 the day I fled a decade ago. "It's so charming," Marissa said, pressing her nose against the passenger window. "Look at that gazebo, and the town square. It's like a postcard." "Looks can be deceiving," I muttered, navigating toward the bed and breakfast I'd booked. Marissa squeezed my knee. "Well, I'm excited to meet your old friends. You said Tom still lives here, eh?" "Tom. My oldest friend. The only one who knew the whole truth." "Yeah," I said. "We're meeting him for dinner tomorrow." The bed and breakfast was run by Mrs. Holloway, a widow who'd moved to Oak Ridge after I left. She didn't recognize my name when we checked in, which was a small relief. "Honeymoon in Oak Ridge," she exclaimed. "That's unusual. Most newlyweds want beaches or Europe." "My husband grew up here," Marissa explained. "I want to see all his childhood haunts." Mrs. Holloway's eyes sharpened with interest. "Oh? What's your maiden name, dear?" she asked me. "Parker," I said, using my mother's name, "but we moved away when I was in high school. Doubt anyone remembers me." That night, lying beside my sleeping wife, I stared at the ceiling, wondering if coming back had been a catastrophic mistake. 10 years seemed long enough for memories to fade, for people to forget the scandal. I'd changed my name, grown a beard, lost 30 pounds. Even my own mother might not recognize me at first glance. The next morning, as we walked down Main Street, a voice called out from across the street. "Well, I'll be damned. Is that you?" My blood froze. Sheriff Collins was older now, hair fully gray, but still in uniform, still carrying himself with the same authoritative swagger. "Sheriff," I nodded, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Didn't expect to see you back in Oak Ridge," he said, eyes boring into mine. "Not after everything." Marissa looked between us, confused. "You remember my husband from when he was a kid?" The sheriff's eyebrows rose slightly. "Husband? Congratulations." He extended his hand to Marissa. "Sheriff Jim Collins. Known this one since he was knee-high to a grasshopper." "We're only here a few days," I said. "Pretty packed schedule." "I'm sure you can find time," he replied, then tipped his hat to Marissa. "Ma'am, enjoy your stay." That evening, we met Tom at the local steakhouse. He'd been my best friend from kindergarten through that final, terrible summer. Over dinner, Tom charmed Marissa with sanitized stories of our childhood bike races, fishing trips, petty mischief. He carefully avoided any mention of high school, of that summer, of her. After dinner, outside the restaurant, Tom hugged me again. "She doesn't know, does she?" he whispered in my ear. "No," I confirmed. "And she never will." "Sheriff Collins called me when he saw you," Tom said quietly. "He's still convinced." "I know what he thinks," I cut him off. "It doesn't matter. We're leaving day after tomorrow." Back at the B&B, Marissa was quiet, thoughtful. "Why won't anyone talk about your high school years?" Tom kept changing the subject. "Nothing interesting happened. Small-town life is boring." "You're lying," she said simply. "You've been tense since we arrived. That sheriff looked at you like he was waiting for something." "There's nothing to tell," I insisted. "I just don't have fond memories of this place. Can we drop it, please?" Around 3 a.m. I slipped out of bed and went downstairs to the B&B's small library. A decanter of brandy sat on a side table, and I poured myself a generous glass. "Trouble sleeping?" Mrs. Holloway stood in the doorway in a floral robe, her gray hair loose around her shoulders. "Your wife is lovely. She's been asking everyone about you, you know, trying to piece together your childhood here." "My niece, Rebecca, lived here," she continued. "Such a beautiful girl. She disappeared 10 years ago, the summer before her senior year." The room seemed to tilt. Rebecca Holloway. I hadn't known her surname. We'd all just called her Becca. "They never found her body," Mrs. Holloway said, her voice hardening. "But everyone knows what happened. Everyone knows who was with her last." "I didn't kill Rebecca," I said, the denial automatic after a decade of repetition. Mrs. Holloway smiled thinly. "Then where is she?" "She texted her friend that she was meeting you at the quarry. You admit you were there. She never came home." "We argued," I said, the old story falling from my lips. "She was upset. She left before me. That's all I know." "I moved here to keep her memory alive," she whispered. "Does she know about the blood they found on your shirt? The one you tried to burn?" That was explained. I cut myself climbing the quarry fence. "Well, enjoy the rest of your honeymoon. I'm sure your wife will have plenty of questions after she meets me for tea tomorrow. I've invited her while you're meeting Sheriff Collins." I returned to our room and packed our bags as quietly as possible. When Marissa stirred, I was dressed and ready. "We need to leave," I said. "Now. I'll explain in the car." Once we were safely past the town limits, I gripped the steering wheel. I didn't want to come back here. There was an incident before I left. A girl went missing. People thought I was involved. "Were you?" Her voice was steady, but I could hear the doubt creeping in. "No," I said firmly. "But there was circumstantial evidence. We argued that night. She left angry. No one ever saw her again." "So our entire relationship is based on a lie," she said quietly. "No," I insisted. "I'm the same person you fell in love with. My past doesn't change that." We drove to a highway motel an hour outside of Oak Ridge. As the sun rose, Marissa finally spoke again. "I don't know if I can trust you," she said. "Not because of what might have happened then, but because you kept it from me." "I was afraid of losing you," I admitted. "I still am." What really happened that night, the whole truth. I took a deep breath. Rebecca and I had been dating secretly. Her parents wouldn't approve. That night, she told me she was pregnant. I panicked, I continued. Said things I shouldn't have. We fought. She slapped me. I grabbed her wrists. Probably too hard, she stormed off. By the time I went home, she'd been reported missing. And the blood? I did cut myself on the fence, but later, when they found her car abandoned near the state forest, they decided it was her blood. Marissa checked into the motel alone. As the morning grew brighter, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "She'll never believe you. No one did. Because they all know what you're capable of. What you did to my Rebecca. You don't deserve happiness." Another message came through, this time from Tom. "Sheriff Collins called. Mrs. Holloway reported a break-in at the B&B. Claims family heirlooms are missing. They're looking for you." A knock on my window made me jump. Marissa stood there, her face unreadable. "I've been thinking," she said, "about trust and truth and who you really are. And I know the man I married," she said firmly. "Whatever happened 10 years ago, whatever this town believes about you, I know you now. The man who brings me coffee every morning, who held my hand through my father's funeral, who cried watching our wedding video. I believe you," she said. "But we need to face this. Running away just makes you look guilty. We're going back." Against every instinct, I drove us back to Oak Ridge. The sheriff was waiting at the B&B along with Mrs. Holloway, who looked almost disappointed to see Marissa at my side. "We didn't take anything," Marissa stated, "and we'll empty our bags to prove it." The search revealed nothing. As we left the sheriff's office, Tom called with news that made my blood run cold. "They're draining the quarry," he said. "Anonymous tip came in. They think they'll find Rebecca's remains." 3 days later, they found her backpack, weighted down with rocks. Inside was her diary, preserved in a waterproof bag, with entries detailing her secret relationship not with me, but with her father's business partner, a married man. The final entry described her plan to run away. The investigation shifted overnight. Cell phone records showed calls between Rebecca and the businessman continuing hours after she supposedly disappeared. His alibi fell apart under renewed scrutiny. "We can still salvage our honeymoon," Marissa suggested as we packed to leave Oak Ridge for good. "Go somewhere tropical, like you wanted." I smiled at my wife, this incredible woman who had believed in me when no one else would. "Actually, I think this was perfect," I said. "Not the honeymoon I would have chosen, but the one I needed." "Where to now?" Marissa asked, her hand finding mine across the console. "Anywhere," I said, "as long as we're together." What I didn't tell her was about the text message that had come through just before we left, from a number with an out-of-state area code. "I'm sorry for what they put you through. I never meant for anyone to get hurt. I hope you found happiness. I have. Some secrets, even between husband and wife, are better left kept. Not out of deception, but out of mercy. Rebecca had her new life. And finally, I could begin mine." Story 4. Something in the water. I knew Cancun would be perfect for our honeymoon. Lisa had always dreamed of crystal clear waters and white sand beaches, and I wanted everything to be perfect for her. 6 years together, and I still got butterflies watching her walk down the aisle. When I saw her face light up as our taxi pulled up to the beachfront resort, I knew I'd made the right choice. "James, it's beautiful." Lisa squeezed my hand as we stepped into the open-air lobby, a gentle breeze carrying the scent of plumeria blossoms. The resort was everything the travel agent had promised: private cabanas on the beach, infinity pools, and all-inclusive dining. We even splurged on the honeymoon package with a sunset couples massage and a private dinner on the beach. During check-in, I noticed a small sign. Please respect beach closures and swimming advisories. When I asked about it, the concierge Manuel smiled warmly. Just standard procedures, senor. Sometimes after storms, debris washes up. Nothing to worry about. Our room overlooked the Caribbean, its waters shifting between turquoise and deep blue. That first day was perfect. We lounged by the pool, drank margaritas, and fell asleep to the sound of waves crashing against the shore. The second day, we explored the beach. Most tourists congregated near the resort, but Lisa wanted to find a more secluded spot. We walked down the shoreline until we found a small cove around a bend. The water was even clearer here, revealing colorful fish darting between coral formations. "This is perfect," Lisa said, spreading out our towels. I noticed a small red flag staked in the sand about 50 yards further down, but it seemed far enough away not to concern us. We spent the morning swimming and sunbathing. Around noon, I suggested heading back for lunch, but Lisa wanted to stay longer. "The water's so perfect here, James. Let's swim one more time." We waded into the crystal water together. Lisa was a stronger swimmer than me, quickly pulling ahead as we paralleled the shoreline. Then I noticed she drifted closer to the area with the red flag. "Lisa," I called out, "maybe we should stay in this area." She waved back, but continued swimming, now definitely in the flagged zone. Something about her movements changed, more frantic, less controlled. I started swimming harder toward her. "Lisa, come back!" Her head disappeared beneath the surface. I swam faster than I ever had, adrenaline coursing through my veins. When I reached the spot where I'd last seen her, I dove beneath the surface. The water was deeper here, dropping off suddenly into darkness. Something moved below me. Lisa, thrashing, her legs kicking wildly. I dove deeper, reaching for her outstretched hand. When our fingers connected, I pulled with all my strength, dragging her toward the surface. We broke through together, both gasping for air. Lisa clung to me, coughing and trembling. "Something," she choked out between coughs, "something grabbed my ankle." "It's okay," I said, supporting her as we swam back to shore. "Probably just seaweed." Once on the beach, I examined her ankle. 5 distinct red marks encircled it, already darkening into bruises. "Seaweed doesn't leave marks like this," she whispered, touching the tender skin. Back at the resort, I spoke with Gabriella at the front desk while Lisa showered. "That area is marked with red flags for a reason, senor. It's not safe for swimming." "What's the danger there? Strong currents?" Gabriella hesitated. "Local fishermen avoid that cove. There have been incidents." "What kind of incidents?" She glanced around, then leaned closer. "People have reported feeling pulled underwater. Some say it's just rip currents, but..." She straightened up as another employee walked by. "Please just stay within the resort's designated swimming areas." That night, Lisa had nightmares. She thrashed in bed, murmuring about cold hands dragging her down. The next morning, she suggested we stick to the resort pools. On our 4th day, I woke to find Lisa's side of the bed empty. The balcony door was slightly ajar. A solitary figure stood at the shoreline, Lisa, still in her nightgown, the white fabric ghostly in the dim light. "Lisa," I called as I approached. "What are you doing out here?" She turned slowly, as if coming out of a trance. "I heard singing, James. Coming from the water. It was just a dream. Let's go back inside." She resisted slightly. "No, it was real, like voices calling me." She pointed down the beach toward the cove we'd visited. That afternoon, while Lisa napped, I sought out Manuel at the front desk. "What's really happening at that cove? My wife has bruises on her ankle, and now she's hearing voices calling her back there." Manuel's professional demeanor slipped. "This coast has many stories. The Maya believed certain places were connected to Xibalba, their underworld. Places where the boundary between worlds was thin. You're saying people believe that Cove is haunted? Not haunted. Hungry." He lowered his voice. Every few years, someone disappears there. The authorities call them drownings, blame rip currents or tourists drinking too much before swimming. But you don't believe that. The local fishermen say those waters claim people, and once it touches you, once it marks someone, it doesn't let go easily. What can I do? I asked. Leave, check out today, go to another resort, another beach, somewhere far from that cove. I returned to our room, determined to convince Lisa we should relocate, but when I opened the door, the room was empty. Her swimsuit was missing from the bathroom door. In the distance, a small figure in a white bikini was walking along the shoreline, heading toward the cove. By the time I reached the beach, Lisa was already waist-deep in the water. I called her name, screaming until my voice grew hoarse, but she continued wading deeper. I plunged into the water after her. The tide seemed stronger today, waves pushing against me as if trying to hold me back. Lisa was swimming now, heading directly toward the red flag. The water grew colder as I followed her into the cove. Lisa suddenly stopped swimming and remained still, floating face up, eyes fixed on the sky above. When I reached her, her skin was icy to the touch. "Lisa," I gasped, "we need to go back." Her eyes found mine, but they seemed different somehow, darker, like the deep water beneath us. "Can't you hear it, James? The singing?" And in that moment, I could. Not with my ears, but somewhere inside my mind, a chorus of voices, melodic and mesmerizing, promising peace beneath the waves. I felt something brush against my leg, then encircle my ankle, not seaweed, but something with purpose. Lisa smiled, an expression I didn't recognize on her familiar face. "They're inviting us home." I fought against the grip on my ankle. "This isn't our home," I insisted, grabbing Lisa's arm. "Our home is together, back on land." Something yanked hard on my leg, nearly pulling me under. I kicked frantically, connecting with something solid yet yielding. "Lisa, swim," I shouted, pulling her arm. "Now." For a terrifying moment, she resisted. And then, like a spell breaking, fear flooded back into her eyes. We swam with desperate strokes, fighting against what felt like dozens of hands reaching for us from below. When my feet finally touched sand, I nearly wept with relief. Lisa's ankle now bore fresh marks alongside the fading bruises. My own ankle showed similar evidence. 5 distinct oval bruises forming a grisly bracelet around my skin. Within an hour, we had packed our belongings and checked out of the resort. We spent the remainder of our honeymoon at a different resort, 30 miles up the coast, where we strictly adhered to designated swimming areas. That was 2 months ago. We've settled into married life back home in Seattle. Lisa seems to have put the incident behind her, laughing it off now as an overreaction to a scary moment. But I've noticed things that keep me awake at night. The way she sometimes stands in our shower with the water running cold, eyes closed as if listening to distant music. How she's filled our bathroom with seashells and driftwood, despite never having collected such things before. And sometimes, in the dead of night, I wake to find her side of the bed empty, only to discover her in the bathtub, fully submerged beneath the water, eyes open and unblinking, a peaceful smile on her face. She can hold her breath much longer now, much, much longer than should be possible. And the bruises on our ankles never fully fade. Story 5, Local Customs. The travel blogs all said the same thing. For an authentic experience, you need to get away from the tourist traps. That's why I convinced Elise that instead of a typical honeymoon, we should spend 2 weeks in the remote countryside of Eastern Europe, a place where travelers were rare enough that locals still greeted them with genuine curiosity. When our small propeller plane touched down on the single runway, I felt that familiar thrill of being somewhere truly off the beaten path. The rental car representative handed me a paper map with our route highlighted. "GPS not reliable in mountains," he explained in broken English. "Follow road, stay on main path." The drive took us through rolling farmland that gradually gave way to dense forests and steep valleys. As dusk approached, the road began to climb steeply into the mountains. I flipped on the headlights, which cast a weak yellow glow on the increasingly narrow road. Just when doubt began to creep in, our headlights illuminated a wooden sign at a fork in the road. The lettering was faded, but matched the name of our destination village. 10 minutes later, the trees gave way to reveal a cluster of stone buildings nestled in a valley. In the center stood a larger structure with the sign, swinging in the night breeze, our guest house. The guest house door opened before we could knock, revealing an elderly woman with steel-gray hair pulled into a tight bun. "Mr. and Mrs. Miller?" she asked, her accent thick but understandable. "I am Mrs. Novak. Welcome to our village. You are only guests. Very rare we have visitors, especially Americans." "Your room is prepared," Mrs. Novak said, leading us up a creaking wooden staircase. "You are lucky to arrive today. Tomorrow is festival, very special for newlyweds." Our room was simple but comfortable, with a handmade quilt, a wash basin, and a small window overlooking the village square. There was no television, no phone, and predictably no Wi-Fi. That night, Mrs. Novak brought us dense black bread, sharp-smelling cheese, and homemade wine that glowed ruby red in the lamplight. The wine had a strange flavor, sweet at first, then bitter, with an aftertaste that lingered. By my second glass, a pleasant heaviness had settled over my limbs. "What do you think the festival is?" Elise murmured, already half asleep beside me. "Some local harvest celebration, probably," I mumbled. "We'll find out tomorrow." We woke at first light to the sound of drums. I pushed aside the heavy curtain to see the village square filled with people moving in a circle. In the center, a massive wooden archway was being erected, decorated with branches and blossoms. Mrs. Novak brought us festival clothes for Elise, a white dress embroidered with red symbols. For me, a white shirt and black trousers with similar embroidery. "All visitors must participate, is tradition," she said before leaving. Elise traced the red embroidery on her dress. "These symbols look like runes or something." "Probably fertility symbols," I suggested. "These spring festivals are usually about ensuring good harvests." In the village square, the villagers had formed concentric circles around the wooden archway. As we descended the guest house steps, a hush fell over the crowd. Mrs. Novak appeared at our side. "You are guests of honor. Newlyweds bring blessing to festival. Very rare, very special." An elderly man in black approached us. "Foreign bride and groom." He addressed us directly. "You have come to our land at the sacred time. You will strengthen our bond with the old ones." The elder gestured for us to approach the archway. "You will pass through together, binding your fates to each other and to this land." Hand in hand we approached. Up close, the carvings were detailed in strange figures with elongated limbs and exaggerated features. As we stepped through, the villagers began to chant. I felt a strange sensation, as if the air had thickened and time had slowed. On the other side, the elder waited with 2 small clay cups. "Drink and seal your bond." The liquid inside was dark and aromatic. I hesitated only briefly before drinking. Elise followed suit. The effect was immediate, a rush of warmth spreading from my core, followed by heightened awareness of everything around me. What happened next unfolded like scenes from a dream. We were guided into the forest where a feast had been prepared. We were seated at the head table while villagers brought us the choicest portions and continuously refilled our cups. As the day progressed, the celebration grew more uninhibited. Villagers danced around fires, some wearing elaborate masks representing animals. As night fell, the elder called for silence. "Now comes final blessing. Newlyweds will receive sacred mark. Will bind them forever to each other and to this place." 2 villagers approached with small stone bowls containing a dark paste. The elder drew complex patterns on my forehead and hands. Another villager did the same to Elise. "Tonight you will dream of old ones," the elder told us. "They will show you truth of your bond." I felt an overwhelming wave of exhaustion. Mrs. Novak helped us back to the guest house. I was vaguely aware of falling onto our bed still fully clothed. My dreams that night were vivid beyond anything I'd experienced before. I saw Elise and myself in ancient garb, participating in the same ritual but in different times hundreds, perhaps thousands of years in the past. I woke just before dawn, my heart racing. The marks on our skin had stained, leaving faint but distinct patterns. I slipped out of bed and went to the window. Mrs. Novak was crossing the square toward the forest path. Curious, I followed her to a circle of standing stones surrounding a central altar-like slab. "You should not be here," she said when she sensed my presence. "What was in that drink?" I asked. "What kind of ritual was that, really?" "You asked for authentic experience, yes? This is oldest tradition of our people, binding ritual." "Binding what exactly?" "You to wife, you both to land, to old ones who protect village." "And these marks? Seal of covenant. Many foreigners come here over centuries. Some stay, some try to leave." Her expression hardened. "Those who try to leave bring bad fortune. We're leaving tomorrow. Our flight." "No flights," she interrupted. "Heavy snow in mountains. Roads closed." "That's impossible," I protested. "It's spring," she shrugged. "Weather changes quickly in mountains." I hurried back to find Elise still sleeping too deeply. The marks on her had darkened further, forming intricate patterns that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles. "Elise, wake up," I called, shaking her gently. Her eyes fluttered open, but recognition was delayed. "What time is it?" "We need to leave now," I said, already packing. She sat up slowly. "But the festival? Aren't there more ceremonies today?" "No more ceremonies," I insisted. "Something's not right here." She caught my wrist, her touch sending an electric shock through me. "What's wrong? You're scaring me." I explained what Mrs. Novak had said about the binding ritual, and the closed roads. "Maybe we should stay," she said, her voice eerily serene. "I feel connected here, like we belong." This wasn't the Elise I knew. Something had changed in her, just as something was changing in me. I could feel it a pull toward this place, toward the ancient stones in the forest. "We don't belong here," I said firmly, continuing to pack. I took Elise's hand and led her outside. Our rental car sat where we had left it. I loaded our luggage while Elise stood motionless, gazing back at the wooden archway. The car started without issue, but as we rounded the first bend in the road, I slammed on the brakes. Before us, where the road should have continued, was nothing but forest-dense, ancient trees growing so closely together that they formed an impenetrable wall. I tried another path leading out of the village, only to encounter the same result. Roads that should have existed simply didn't, replaced by forest that looked centuries old. "I told you," came Mrs. Novak's voice. "Roads closed. You stay." That night, as Elise slept beside me, I slipped out again to find my own path through the forest. The village was silent under a full moon. I moved toward the edge of the forest, choosing a direction we hadn't tried with the car. Just as I reached the tree line, Elise called out behind me. "You cannot leave. Neither of us can. We are bound now to each other, to this place, to the old ones." "There are no old ones," I said. "It was just a ritual." "Then why can't you find the road?" she asked. "Why do the trees move to block your path?" I plunged into the forest, flashlight beam bobbing ahead of me. The path seemed to wind back on itself in impossible ways. Trees I was certain I'd passed before appeared again, and all the while, I felt eyes watching not human eyes, but something older, something patient. When dawn filtered through the trees, I made a devastating discovery. I had been walking all night, yet as the mist cleared, I could see the village in the valley below me. Defeated, I returned to find Elise waiting in our room. The marks had spread further, now covering most of her visible skin in swirling patterns. "You came back," she said simply. "I didn't have a choice." Days passed, then weeks. We made no more attempts to leave. The village settled into a routine, and strangely, so did we. I found myself helping with spring planting, learning the local language, participating in smaller rituals. Elise adapted more completely, as if she had always belonged here. She spent hours with the village women, learning their crafts and songs. Sometimes, in the dead of night, I would wake to find her gone from our bed. From the window, I would watch her walking toward the forest, toward the stone circle. She never invited me to join her on these nocturnal journeys. The marks continued to spread across our skin, forming a map of our transformation. Our language changed too. We spoke less English, adopting instead the ancient dialect of the village. Summer came, bringing new rituals, new responsibilities. I no longer thought of our former life, of the home we had left behind. Those memories felt like they belonged to someone else. Tourists occasionally found their way to the village. We welcomed them, guided them through the rituals, watched as some left and others stayed. The forest decided, Mrs. Novak explained. The old ones chose. Autumn approaches now. Elise's belly has begun to swell with our first child, conceived during the midsummer ritual. The marks on her skin have formed new patterns to protect the growing life within her. Tonight is the autumn equinox. A young couple from Germany arrived yesterday, looking for the authentic experience we once sought. They are newlyweds, like we were. Elise has prepared their ceremonial clothes. I have helped build the wooden archway in the village square. The drums will begin at sunrise. After all, that's what we came for, isn't it? The authentic experience, an experience that never ends. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more horror stories on Moonlit Scarecrow.